When it comes to filmmaking, especially in terms of what you'll find on YouTube when you go down the rabbit hole, one of the things that's talked about the most, more than gear, more than lighting, more than cameras, even more so than the story itself, is the concept of teamwork. In a sense that you'll always hear you can't necessarily put out the best product by yourself. And the conversation about teamwork in filmmaking is very much meritorious. In a sense that 90 to 95% of the best work that you see out there is done by a crew of individuals, or collective I should say, that really come together to be able to work on bringing a story to life. Whether that's a gaffer, a grip, a first AC, but the actual reality is that the filmmaking community is surprisingly tribal and can very much be territorial for new creators to navigate through. And this is because the more you research and learn, the more constantly you're pulled in multiple directions as you seemingly go down the YouTube rabbit hole. And this sort of tribalism manifests in various ways. The most prominent being film school graduates versus self-taught filmmakers.
I hate you, Patrick.
I hate you more.
I hate you no matter what.
Basically, you have film school graduates out there that tend to show a form of resentment towards people who learned on their own or went to what we call YouTube University, essentially viewing them as unprofessional or basically lack of knowledge if they don't have a film degree. Another form of tribalism that you'll see within the industry is the filmmakers who use cinema cameras versus the mirrorless camera shooters. And there's always been a big divide between these two camps that in a lot of cases, just like the last point I talked about, turns into each side questioning the professionalism of the other.
Right here, the hardest hitting 145 pound, the real hardest hitting 145er right here. Who the fuck is that guy? Who the fuck is that? You know damn well who I am. Who the fuck is that?
Other forms of tribalism you'll probably see is the DSLR crowd versus the mirrorless crowd. You've got the Sony versus Canon shooters. You've got your iPhone filmmakers versus people who actually use a camera. Then of course you've got the red shooters versus everybody, which I kind of understand why their footage is just that good.
Shut the fuck up! You shut the fuck up!
And see, all these forms of tribalism not only make it hard for new filmmakers to possibly find mentors, but the constant back and forth turns into a level of toxicity that ultimately forces people to quit filmmaking altogether. Or for some of us, if you're anything like me, you essentially just say fuck it and be a maverick. Not that maverick, bro. But all jokes aside, what I really mean by becoming a maverick is essentially breaking the mold, pushing boundaries, and just overall bringing a unique voice and vision to the screen. You know, when you really think about it, filmmaking is an art that thrives on innovation, or even just the willingness to go daringly where others haven't yet. Now, it's easy to talk about what being a maverick means in the terms of filmmaking, but in terms of how somebody would actually do that, it ultimately starts with just embracing your vision. You know, you have to find ways to be able to stay true to your artistic taste, even if that means going against the grain. Filmmakers who are mavericks are often recognized for their distinctive style, as well as the unconventional way that they tell a story. And the biggest challenge is finding the balance between staying true to that vision and also being open to what others can bring you. And this is what makes directors like Tony Scott, Danny Gervais, or Antoine Fuqua as some of my favorite creators in terms of cinematography. Another way filmmakers become mavericks in the space is by being able to leverage their independence. Something I can guarantee you after being in this space for 10 years is that you're going to hear a lot more no's than yeses. Sometimes there's going to be projects you take on and you're just not going to be able to have a whole crew with you. And while some people can find it overwhelming having to wear so many hats on a production, maverick filmmakers who lean into that independence end up having the freedom to be able to make creative decisions without compromise. See, the independence behind embracing what makes you different allows you to pursue a unique vision without the difficulty of being constrained by outside dynamics. In other words, at some point you're going to have to take risks. Whether it's experimenting with new filmmaking techniques, exploring maybe a controversial theme, or telling a story from a different perspective, sometimes the risks that you take in filmmaking are what can lead to groundbreaking work. Another thing that's parallel with taking risks that you'll see a lot of maverick filmmakers do is essentially challenging norms. Probably one of the most scary and challenging things about being a filmmaker is being bold enough to question and challenge traditional norms in the industry without fear of being ostracized for it. This could be things like reimagining genres. First example that comes to mind to me is a movie like Hardcore Henry, where it basically took the action genre and just flipped it into a first-person view, which we had never really seen before. It could involve things like breaking the fourth wall in a piece of art. The best example of this would be the story within the Metal Gear game series, which could be a whole entire video on its own. Another example of challenging norms could be playing with narrative structure. The best example of this to me are movies like Vantage Point or Pulp Fiction. Another way you see filmmakers being mavericks are by the way they innovate with technology. And it's not just about staying updated with the latest advancements in cameras and other gear, but also combining that with new ways of using older technology, with all of that enhancing the way you tell your story. And that ties into my next point about being a maverick, which is being able to stay adaptable. You know, the filmmaking industry is evolving every second, every day, especially with the rise of artificial intelligence. You have to be able to embrace new trends, new technologies, and storytelling techniques in order to stay ahead of the curve and stand out in a competitive landscape. All while simultaneously understanding that you can't know what hasn't been done until you know what's been done before you. Another key part of being a maverick filmmaker, in order for people to actually be able to respect it, is staying authentic. Your experiences, perspective, and unique voice are what's going to make your work stand out. You know, one of the ways that I try to do that through my channel is transparency. I'll be the first to tell you guys, I didn't graduate from a film school. I'm nowhere near the best DP in the world, but I'm definitely confident in the skills that I've developed over the last 10 years to not only put out a good piece of product, but also the ability to offer my own insight. And I want other filmmakers to be able to have that confidence. Something that's also key is learning from other maverick filmmakers. You know, study the work of filmmakers that you see display these same characteristics that I'm talking about. You know, some of my favorite creators like Kent Lamb of Standard Story Company, Zach Mayfield, Cable Creates, and Nigel Burrows have all carved out their niche in some way by defying convention, which is what makes me continue to consume and enjoy their content. But none of what I talked about today means anything without doing the most important thing, and that's staying resilient. You know, a quote from one of my favorite artists, Starlito, once said, "You can't fail until you quit." One thing I can never sugarcoat to you is that the path of a maverick filmmaker is often going to be filled with obstacles and most especially rejection. And the feeling of being zeroed out doesn't just happen in filmmaking, it happens in life as well. Stay persistent in the face of these challenges and remember that every setback is an opportunity to sharpen your blade of creativity. You know, don't let the tribalism of the filmmaking industry keep you from finding your voice or pursuing your artistic vision. You know, it's definitely a challenging journey, but it's a journey that can lead to the most remarkable and groundbreaking work. And the only reason that work isn't out yet is because you haven't pressed record. See you guys on set. Peace out.